Okay, today we're going to continue on our quest through Pirkei Avos, Parak Aleph, Mishnah Yud, and we're going to be discussing a massive topic over here, which is working. Why should we love working or a job, right? We're going to discuss working full time versus learning full time. An amazing story about having faith in God. Kollel, learning in order to teach others, and if we're going to discuss the obligation to learn, even for someone who works. Is it permissible to be supported by others? Some miscellaneous, and then another time about why it's so difficult to make money, what job a person should choose, and then the last part of this Mishnah, what it means to hate positions of authority. Okay? So the Mishnah begins by saying, Shmaya Oimer, Oev Asam Malacha, V'sanas Rabbanas Valtis Vadi Lurishus. Person should love working, hate positions of authority, and don't become overly familiar with government officials. And we're going to have to discuss those another time. It's worthwhile to watch everything in order, but there will be timestamps at the bottom. What does it mean to love work? A few explanations. Rabbeinu Yonah explains that one should not stop working. Because if a person's going to stop working, the Mishnah in Ksuba says, "Habatal is me'ivi l'dei shimam." Not doing anything all day brings to a bad mental state. It's in Ksubas Anuntes. Idling, just not doing anything. That could be a major problem. This is something that people who are going to retire need to think about. Person always has to be doing something productive, and if they're not, it's very bad. Number two, Rashi quotes the Gemara in Pesachim on Kufya Gimel that says that a person should spread his animal in the marketplace, shoot in a velosa beshuka, and don't say gavra ba'ani. Spread the animal in the marketplace and don't say I'm a great person. AKA, this is beneath me. Someone who is burdened after making an income, he's not going to steal, right? If someone doesn't have any money, those are the types of people that steal. People who make a lot of money, they don't steal, right? People who make money, they're not going to accept charity, and they're going to live a long life. As the pasuk says, "Soyna matanas yichya," right? Someone who doesn't like gifts will live. So we see the importance over here of working for what you have. The Gemara in Brachos on Chesem and Aleph says that someone who works is fortunate in this world and the next world. It will be good for you in this world and the next world. Explanation number three to this Mishnah is the Midrash Shmuel on page 42. One should love the paycheck. One should not love the paycheck but hate his job. Rather, one has to love his job, the Mishnah says. This is why the Gemara says that someone who gets pleasure from the work of his hands is better than someone who fears heaven. It's all about the hands. You have to enjoy what you're doing, the toil of the work itself. Right? Like when I take care of my kids, clean the house, mow the lawn, that is all part of working, and that physical exertion is healthy. It's not good to just sit all day and learn Torah. Person should move a little. So it's good. I'm not getting a paycheck for any of that, but it helps. Explanation number four. The Yabates in the Lechem Shemayim, quoted by the Mesivta in the Biuri Hapshat in footnote 125, explains that sickness is going to come upon someone who doesn't toil with his work. It's talking about someone who doesn't really work. Even scholars who are learning and toiling with Torah all day, they need to toil with work, to do something. Really, the Avos asks why the Mishnah says to love hamalacha as opposed to malacha. If we go back to the Mishnah, it says, Oeves hamalacha, love the work. What exactly is the hey hayadiyah? Right? Why is there a hey before malacha, work? The Mishnah is referring to perhaps spiritual type of work, which is more precious than other types of work. There's another discussion in of itself. Usually rabbi positions and like you don't make as much money as mundane jobs as other types of jobs, but it's very rewarding in many other ways. And you're in a Torah environment, etc. We need to love the Torah and love learning it. This is why the Mishnah continues by saying that we should despise positions of authority, aka learn Torah lishma for its own sake. Don't seek and try to get positions of authority. Rav or Rosh Hashiva, don't worry about that. That will come, right? The statement at the end of the Mishnah says, don't become overly familiar with government officials. That refers to if you're in a new area, don't inform people that you're a great person in order to receive honor. The idea is just work, learn Torah just because it's what you're supposed to do. Those are a few explanations over there. Now, let's discuss a few random sources. The Aruch HaShulchan says that having a job is a good thing. All right. So the Gemara in Kedushin actually discusses this. The Gemara in Kedushin on Chav Tes says that one is obligated to teach his son a job. And anyone who doesn't teach his son a job, it's as if you taught him how to be a robber, a thief. So many people, says the Aruch HaShulchan, make a mistake about this, and they say that having a job is something that is disgraceful. There were many Tanoim and Amoraim who had jobs. So that's what the Aruch HaShulchan says, and this is something that we need to consider. The importance of having a job. This is for the people. Mission Avos, that's another Mishnah. In the second parak, towards the beginning, says that Rabbi Gamliel, son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, says, Yalfa Talmud Toirim derech eresh yagia shnei mashchachas avim. Torah is good when it's accompanied with work. Person works and learns Torah, it's great. Because when you do both, it will cause you to forget sins. Any Torah that doesn't have work with it, at the end will just be null and void. It will be canceled and it will lead to sin. Rashi explains, someone who learns Torah and works to support his family, he's not going to get jealous and steal from other people. It's impossible to be without food. Everyone's got to put food on the table. He's going to go, and if he doesn't have a job, and he's going to start stealing from people, and he's going to forget everything that he learned. Bartanura explains that the Torah weakens a person's strength, and working crushes and breaks the body. Both these together are going to cause the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, to become nullified, canceled. So why can't we just learn Torah? Then we'll be weak. Because you might steal in order to get food, then you're going to forget your learning. Let's talk about now learning full-time versus working full-time. Should one learn Torah full-time? The answer is it depends on the person. The Gemara in Brachos, in the beginning of Ketzim Avarchim, on Lamed Hey, Amid Beis, relates that according to Rabbi Yishmael, one should work. It's not like bad minhag derech eretz. However, according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, same person who stayed in a cave for many years to learn Torah, 13 years. According to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, one should learn Torah full time. How's it going to be possible if he's busy plowing and doing everything with the field that he's going to properly learn Torah? He won't. Rather, Rabbi Shimon says, when the Jews are doing the will of Hashem, the work's going to be done by others. And when they're not, then they're going to have to work themselves. Then the Gemara says, quotes Abai, Harbe also could Rabbi Yishmael also be on the Gemara says. Many people went like Rabbi Yishmael, it worked out. However, many people went like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and it didn't work out. That's the Gemara over there says. Then the Gemara quotes Rava, who would tell his students during the months of Nisan and Tishrei they shouldn't appear in front of him and they should go work. So that the rest of the year they wouldn't need to be burdened with making money, so they should work just for a few months. The rest of the year then they can learn full time. The Gemara then says that the earlier generations, and this is an important line, they made their Torah learning their primary occupation. It was their primary job. Their work was secondary. And guess what? They were successful with both. However, the later generations, they did the opposite. They made their work priority one and they were unsuccessful. So the Marshal explains that there are a few completely righteous people who have other people working for them while they learn Torah. Everyone shouldn't rely on this and say that he won't work at all because others will work for him, says the Marsha. Maybe he's mistaken. Maybe he's not part of that select few of completely righteous people who should just dedicate themselves to learning Torah. This is why the Gemara says, explains the Marsha, that many people went like Rabbi Yishmael and it worked out. That's because most people aren't cut out. They're not fully righteous, and therefore they're not cut out to dedicate full time to learning. It didn't work out because this world isn't a completely righteous place. We have another mission in Avos. The end of the first parak. Shammai says, Aseh soros keva. Make your Torah learning fixed, make it set. Rambam explains that one's Torah learning should be the root and the main priority. Everything else should be pulled after the Torah learning. If it's able to get it done, great. If it can't get done, those other activities, and don't do it. Rabbeinu Yonah relates that the Avos Rabbi Nosson says in Perikov Ches, whoever makes his Torah learning set and his work secondary will be made a first priority in the next world. However, the vice versa also is true. Rabbeinu Yonah explains that someone who didn't sin and didn't make his Torah learning priority one, even if he's going to get the next world, he's going to be secondary there. Bartanura explains that one man's dealings during the day and night should be Torah. When he gets tired from learning, he should work. This coincides with the Gemara in Brachos that says that you should make your Torah learning priority one, and that's how they were successful in an earlier generation. Another mitzvah, another mission in Pirkei Avos in the third parak relates. Very important mission. Whoever accepts upon himself the yoke of Torah, so it's going to be removed from him the yoke of kingdoms and work, meaning he won't need to work. He won't need to be involved with all this other stuff. And then the Mishnah continues vice versa. Rabbi Yonah explains someone who makes Torah learning priority one will be guarded by Hashem from all bad, and he will be protected that he won't need to waste his time from his learning. He'll just be able to dedicate himself to full-time learning. The Torah, first halacha sefer, to organize all halacha really. In your day in Hilchos Talmud Torah and Siman Reish Mem Vav Sifim Chaf Chaf Aleph says that one should make his Torah set and his work secondary. Don't say when I have more time I'll learn. Shema lo tipanu. Right? Because maybe you might not have more time. That's the idea over here. The rabbis teach us that someone who does a lot of business will not become wise. We're commanded to decrease our business and learn more Torah. Beis Yosef says that we could bring a lot of proofs for supporting people who learn Torah. And this is fitting to do. Because if people wouldn't be, this is the Beis Yosef is, remember, Rabbi Yosef Cairo over here that we're talking about over here. And we're going to be learning about him. Also, we're going to see what he says in Shulchan Aruch and what he's going to say in Kesef Mishnah. If people wouldn't be supported to learn Torah, then the entire Torah would just be nullified, God forbid. People who support Torah learning enable others to learn Torah, and this causes Torah to grow. There are many proofs in the Gemara and Midrashim which demonstrate that it's permissible to take money in order to learn. Nevertheless, someone who is able to make an income from work that he does and learn Torah is certainly a pious characteristic and a godly way, but not everyone could do that. This method is impossible for everyone to do. It's impossible for everyone to learn Torah and be wise while also working. Bach says that the Beis Yosef is vague and doesn't specify the Rambam's proofs. Bach then provides proofs that it is permissible to get supported and concludes by saying that there's no prohibition of being supported. Now, Rama over there says that the custom in all places is for the Rav of the city to get supported from the people of the city in order that he doesn't need to work in front of others and embarrass the Torah. And the Shach points out that even though the Beis Yosef didn't elaborate on the proofs, Rabbi Yosef Cairo elaborates on many proofs in his Kesef Mishnah. So just because Rabbi Cairo doesn't speak out the proofs in the Beis Yosef, that's fine, because he discusses it in the Kesef Mishnah. So that's fine over there. That's what the Shach points out. Now, someone who learns and teaches Torah and only leaves his house for mitzvah purposes, he has to take money from others in order that he could dedicate himself to learning Torah. And it will be considered a sin if he doesn't take money from others. This applies even if he's capable of working and making money. Aruch HaShulchan says, over there in your day in Reish Mem Vav Os Lamed Ches, that if the congregation, if the tzibur doesn't want, and it wouldn't be honorable to them if their Rav worked, then for sure they could pay their Rav so that he could have something to live from that payment. Now, the Shulchan Aruch in Kufna and Vav writes that after davening, one should go to work because any Torah that isn't accompanied with work will in the end be nullified and lead to sin, like we saw in the Mishnah before. Someone who does have what to eat and is poor will rebel against Hashem, who doesn't have what to eat. If someone doesn't have what to eat, he's going to rebel against Hashem. That's the idea. If someone doesn't have what to eat and he's poor, he's going to rebel against Hashem. But the work shouldn't be the primary focus. The learning should be the primary focus, like we said in the Gemara in Brachos from before. The Aruch HaShulchan, this is very important explanation. The Aruch HaShulchan over there explains in Oz Beis. This only refers to the average person, not the Talmud Chacham. The Talmud Chacham, the scholar, he has to make his Torah learning the primary focus. The average person is only required to set time to learn Torah daily. This is what the Aruch HaShulchan says. Mishnah Berurah, so therefore there's a difference. All right? A Talmud Chacham, someone who's capable and who could learn all day, you should be learning all day, and we're going to discuss that a lot more. All right? Mishnah Berurah over there in Oz Beis says that one should only work the amount of time he needs in order to live. How much time is that? You have to be careful from your Yitzhar, your evil inclination. Because a lot of times our evil inclination will try to convince us that we need to spend the entire day working. The main thing is we have to contemplate what is necessary. The Shar HaTzion over there in Oz Gimel explains that in order that we don't get tricked, we have to imagine and we have to say, wait, how much time would we work to support our friend? The amount of time that we would spend towards work to support our friend is the amount of time that we should work in order to support ourselves. Very important Ber Halacha. In Dibur Maskul Sofa over there. He explains that the Shulchan Aruch is referring to most people who aren't able to learn Torah full time. However, there are certainly people who are able to learn Torah full time. And this is what the Gemara in Brachos means when it says Harbe. Many people went like Rabbi Shimon and were unsuccessful. Yeah, specifically, many went like him and were unsuccessful. However, some people who did this Torah learning full time were in fact very successful. Rav Chaim of Volozhin in the Nefesh Chaim in Shar Al Perches says this as well as the Chedushi Hagriz in Parshas Chayei. They also say this. Hashem will certainly provide for them. We're going to come back to this a little bit more. This is what the Rambam means when he says that learning Torah full time doesn't just apply to the tribe of Levi. Anyone who wants to do it can. And this certainly applies if there are people who want to support full-time learners. And that's exactly what the Yisachar Zvulun arrangement is. Now, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik said from the Gemara's conclusion that a proper lifestyle depends on the individual. Like the Gemara says, most people can't go like Rabbi Shimon and devote the entire day to learning Torah. However, some people have a special talent who are able to concentrate. They have a desire, a yearning, an ambition. They can and should learn full time, and that's a praiseworthy approach. If we look around and we see what's happening today around our communities, this is exactly what happens. Most people, most Orthodox Shomer Shabbos Jews spend their whole day working, and they devote some time to learning Torah every single day. Like Rabbi Yishmael said, work. But a small minority of people, they learn full time, like Rabbi Shimon. Just to add an interesting point over here. The Jews were in the desert, as we know, for 40 years. Right? They were learning full time then. They had man from the heavens, their clothing grew with them and remained intact. They learned all day. They didn't need to worry about earning a livelihood. According to one view in the Medrash, Hashem instructed Moshe to speak to the rock. He meant that Moshe should give a shiur. He should teach Torah and produce water in that way. And this would convey the message that even in Israel, majority of people could actually devote themselves to full-time learning and be supported by the minority who would work, till the soil. But as we know, Moshe hit the rock, which symbolizes human effort and work. And this indicated to the people that in Israel, one could produce water, so to say, only through work, aka that the vast majority of the nation would have to work the fields and earn a living rather than learn Torah full-time. Only a small minority of select individuals would devote themselves to full-time learning. After Moshe's mistake of hitting the rock, this is the arrangement that has been followed. And this is the key line to keep in mind. Most Jews spend their day working, but there are select few supported to learn Torah. Both are legitimate, both are praiseworthy lifestyles, and depend on the particular talents and inclinations of each person. However, it has to be emphasized, no view allows for only working without allocating any time for learning Torah. Everyone has to dedicate some time to learning Torah, no matter what. Workaholism, so to say, runs in direct opposition to Torah values. There's no such thing, we don't believe in it. Even though the Torah certainly allows someone to pursue a successful and fulfilling career, nevertheless, every single day a person's obligated to set aside time each day exclusively for learning. Even the majority who follow Rabbi Yishmael's approach have to learn Torah as a spiritual component of their professional lives. This last idea, Rabbi Eli Mansour says in the Daily Halacha, the Petach Eliyahu, on pages 278 to 279. I think it's an excellent point. Really goes with the truth of the matter, with the Ber Halacha and with the Rechaim Volozhin, etc. All of that. It's the same exact idea, just a practical elaboration of it. Now, let's go into this a little bit more, this idea. The Gemara in Shabbos, just elaborate on this, on Lamed Aleph says that at the end of the person's life, he's going to ask, did he set aside time every single day to learn Torah? And did he conduct his business honestly? Rashi explains, people need to work because someone who doesn't work won't have food to eat and won't be able to learn Torah. Even so, he's going to be asked, did he set aside time to learn every single day? He isn't allowed to just work, he has to set aside time to learn Torah. Listen to this amazing story about betachon, believing in Hashem. The Alshach says the following regarding prioritizing one's time for learning Torah and not overly engaging in work. This is based on what he says in Shmos, Tez Zayin, Dal Chaf Aleph. And I saw this in Great Jewish Speeches, page 130 to 134. Hashem sent the man to sustain the Jewish people to take care of them in the desert. This teaches us a very important lesson regarding the Torah's perspective of earning a living. Many believe that their strength and wisdom will provide them with prosperity. They don't learn Torah because they say, well, how could we first learn Torah with diligence without first having amassed a lot of financial resources? Wouldn't it be smarter to first go into business? And if we succeed, then after we're successful, we'll retire and learn Torah full time? If imin kemach ain't Torah, if there's no flour, there's no Torah. It also says imin Torah ain't kemach. Fine. Mission Avos, third parak towards that. The philosophy and reality is a stumbling block for them. Because such people, they become fools. They don't understand Hashem's intent, says the Alshach. Someone who dedicates his heart to making learning his permanent occupation, Hashem will do his will. Someone who comes to purify himself, well, the Torah Messiah, so he's met with a special assistance, a divine assistance. Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Daled. Someone who minimizes his business endeavors will be taken care of from Hashem. There are no limitations to Hashem's abilities. Someone who desires Torah and supports it will be granted blessed sustenance. Someone who believes it is preferable to put Torah aside until his ambitious business pursuits make him wealthy is unaware the opposite is true. Someone who invests his soul into business believes that his profits are earned not by Hashem's will, but by his own good fortune and intelligence. He fails to realize that it's Hashem who takes care. That's what he realizes. We have to realize what the Gemara tells us in Beis and Tez Zayin. All of man's income is determined on Rosh Hashanah how much he's going to make. All we have to do is gather what Hashem prepared for us. So why do we need to work excessively in order to get wealth? Not even in our control. So we should work less. What happened with the man? If you took extra, you got nothing. If you took less, you got the same amount that you were supposed to get. All this is alluded to by Hashem in the Torah portion that discusses the man. This is a model for all human sustenance. We have to know, says Hashem, that all the income we earn in this world is not ours. It's Hashem who rains down the food from heaven. So all those people who are going out to work excessively are only, in truth, going out to pick what was already prepared for them. Therefore, a man should not endeavor to attain affluence, wealth, but he should work one day at a time. Hashem will test first in the furnace of poverty if we follow the Torah or not. And if we do, Hashem will allow us to succeed, so we're going to observe the Torah in prosperity. The Alshach was once saying this type of idea to the whole congregation. Trust Hashem. Hashleich yehavcha al Hashem. Kiss, put your load on him. And he'll provide for you without fail. So there was a simple, hard-working wagon driver who was sitting in the audience. And he took the rabbi's words to heart. And he said, why do I have to work day and night driving my donkey and wagon? I could spare myself the effort by just placing my trust in Hashem, who the rabbi said will certainly provide for all my needs. The man immediately decided to retire from his job. Instead, he sat in shul near the warm furnace and he recited Tehillim. When his nervous wife and family came to him to insist that he return at once to his wagon driving, he calmly said, the rabbi told me, if a man trusts in Hashem, his sustenance will come from heaven without any work at all. If that's the case, why should I go and carry packages with my horses, battle the elements just to earn a livelihood which will come to me anyways with simple trust in God? So eventually what happened? Eventually the man's donkey and wagon were so old, were sold to someone who wasn't Jewish, who was passing through the town. And the buyer took them to make holes in a distant field. And while he was digging, he's discovered a buried treasure. He filled many sacks with gold and precious jewels and loaded them onto his newly acquired wagon. And then suddenly, a large stone rolled down from on top of the ditch and landed on his head. Boom! Killed him on the spot. The donkey pulled the treasure-laden wagon and intuitively returned to the wagon driver's home. So the donkey was used to. When it arrived, the family ran out to greet it and discovered the price of all the cargo that it carried. Excitingly, the family ran to the shul and told the faithful wagon driver his trust had been correct and Hashem had responded to his pure faith by providing him with a great fortune. Tens of millions of dollars. The story spread throughout. The students of the Alshach asked, why this happened? Asked why the simple wagon driver, was rewarded, while they, who also put their trust in Hashem, weren't. Alshach explained. When the wagon driver had heard his shir, he accepted the message with simple and pure faith without questions. And therefore he was awarded immediately. You, on the other hand, said the Alshach, with your sharp and inquisitive minds, listen to my words. You listen to them. But guess what? You also carefully analyzed them and questioned their truth and legitimacy. And therefore, this is why my promise didn't come true for you as it did for them. Amazing story, great story. And also we quoted on the Shir how I got 5 main courses for free, the longer one. At the end of this is the idea. You take care of Hashem, Hashem will take care of you. That's the idea. You do what you're supposed to do, Hashem will take care of you. Let's discuss Kollel for a little bit. The Sefer Ol Arya and Bereshis on page 415 discusses the concept of Kollel. What does Kollel do? Very simple. It saves the Jewish people and is their success. In a place where there is Kollel, there's going to be great kavod shamayim, respect towards heaven and God. And a great ripple effect will result. Community should optimally be built around the Kollel. We need to make sure to support the Kollel in order that it will have the ability to continue. The Ol Aryeh and the Shilos and Shuvas, in the first chelik and the first simon, relates that the Divrei Chaim, in the Shilos Shuvas Divrei Chaim, chelik Aleph Simon Ches says that the townspeople are obligated to support a Talmud Chacham who is learning Torah and davening. Someone who's learning Torah, people in the town are obligated to support him. The Gemara in Shabbos explicitly says this as well, actually. In Kuf Yud Beis. Chassam Sofer explains that even though the pasuk says, Someone who hates gifts will live. Nevertheless, we have to realize one thing. It's still permissible to take money from others. And many great rabbis have taken money from others in the past because they needed it to live. Katz writes that there are three factors that we have to know regarding learning in Kollel. Number one, women. Generally, before people get married, and when they get married, they're very excited and they help with their husband in every single way that's possible in order to enable their husbands to learn. They're prepared to support him, build a house with this foundation. And in many cases, their parents are prepared to support as well. They're prepared to support financially, money, mentally, psychologically, emotionally. But guess what? The unfortunate reality is that sometimes after they get married, they change their mind. They want their husband to work. This is against the beliefs of the Torah. These families need to know when they accept this condition that they need to fulfill what they said and support him. It is a great sin if they do not abide by their original agreement. This is one of the primary purposes of a woman, to assist and encourage her husband to learn. That's why we're here. Learning is priority one. She will receive tremendous reward. When he returns from yeshiva, she should have, a pleasant face of happiness, directly and obviously expressing her delight with his learning. This will give him tremendous strength to continue learning. Number two, people support Kollel. They shouldn't think it's just something that they have to do. They need to know it's a tremendous merit. And that because of the money that they are giving, the support, they are enabling others to learn. They are the oil for the menorah. They are the rain that causes the tree to live. The tree is Eitz Chaim Hilam HaChazikim, but the tree of life, Torah. They need to realize the great fruit that this tree will bear from their investment. Dividends they will pay. We need to realize that when the Jews were in Egypt, everyone worked except for the tribe of Levi. It was because of this that we were redeemed from Egypt. People who support Kollel should give the check wholeheartedly. They need to realize that their own parnasa livelihood will increase because of this. The more they give, the more they get. Gemara and Taanis Daf Tes. Thirdly, the last condition, people who are learning. They have to be responsible. They have to learn with diligence, effort, seriousness. They have to realize that people are making sacrifices in order to enable them to learn. That's what they have to realize over there. They need to realize that people are making sacrifices in order to enable them to learn. AKA, they need to come on time, fulfill their commitments. Just like any job, you need to come on time and stay the whole time. Someone in Kollel has to be prompt and punctual. They need to learn without wasting time and with all their effort. This is very important. There are plenty of people who are learning, unfortunately, who are schmoozing. They're talking to each other. They're in the coffee room. They're doing this, they're doing that. This is something that is not a joke. And it's unfortunate how much time is wasted because of this. When he returns, and this is regular jobs also, people waste time doing other things on the computer. That's another problem in itself. Anyways, when he returns home to his wife, he needs to be happy. And this will strengthen his wife's attitude. She will then continue to assist and encourage her husband with his learning. If he gets up late in the morning, it will have a terrible negative influence. This will have a terrible negative influence on the entire household. So he has to be careful about that. Let's talk about something else, which is very, very important. How are we doing?
Mister. I don't really care. Great. So, Rabbi, were you invited?
Yeah, come sit.
Come.
I already went there. Look about something very important over here. Learning Torah in order to teach others. The mission in Avos in Perek Daled relates that Rabbi Yishmael says, Rabbi Yishmael benoi oimer haloimer al manasel lumun maspikim biyod lumud ulamid. Someone who learns with the intention to teach others will be provided the ability to learn and teach. And someone who learns with the intention that it brings to action, so then he will be provided with the opportunity to learn, teach, guard, and perform. So Neil, according to my humble opinion, This is the same Rabbi Yishmael that we saw in the Gemara who said to work. B'mei davar mamur, when does Rabbi Yishmael say that you should work? That's only talking about if you're not learning in order to teach or so that it learns to action. So I told this to my wife and I said, so who is this referring to then, practically? Who doesn't learn to either teach that it brings action? Unfortunately, there are people who learn because they're forced by parents or a spouse to learn, but they're not really doing it so at least anything. That's what it's talking about. Rambam says that when we look at the earlier rabbis, we're never going to find that they asked for money. They didn't collect money for the yeshivas, etc. Good point by the Rambam. The Tanit Eliyahu in Perek Beis explains that one should learn a lot of Torah and minimize the amount of time he spends working. When this is done, Ruach HaKodesh will dwell on him. The Ber Halacha, there's another very important Ber Halacha in Siman Reish Lamed Aleph in Dibur HaMaskil B'Kol. He quotes the Tshuvas Devar Shmuel, and it's worthwhile to look it up in Siman Kuf Lamed Ches, who says, what's the correct path? Is it better to learn Torah and have many students the entire week and get pleasure from others, aka receive money from them? Dedicate yourself fully to learning, and you're going to have a lot of students because you're going to be very wise. Or is it better to get pleasure from actual work? You should work, toil with your hands, clean work the entire week, and you'll learn. Your main Torah learning will be on Shabbos when you're not working. Dvar Shmuel means that the main learning will be done on Shabbos. However, one should certainly learn Torah during the week, and you have to, as we said above. Ber Halacha rules that even the Rambam would agree that it's better to dedicate all his time to Torah. Even the Rambam, who talks about in Hilchos Talmud Torah how you should work, he would even agree in this specific scenario, dedicate your entire time to Torah, because it's impossible for his Torah to properly endure unless he gets supported. And therefore, he is like other dayanim, judges, and scholars who were supported from the Trumas Halishka. Therefore, that's what you should do, full time. Now, we have to discuss, is it even permissible to get supported by others or not? So the Gemara in Brachos discusses a very important point on Daf Ches, which we already discussed twice. It's greater if you get pleasure from the toil of your hand, more than for someone who fears heaven, etc. And another Gemara in Brachos and Daf Yud says someone who wants to get pleasure from others, he can do so. And if you don't want to get pleasure, you don't want to take money from others, no problem, you could do that also. You don't have to get pleasure from others. Rashi explains that someone who wants to get pleasure from others, he could do so. There's no prohibition, like Alicia. And if you don't want to get the pleasure, you don't need to. That's not considered haughty. Marsha asks, don't we find in many places Chazal distance us from getting pleasure from others? Didn't we already quoted several times? Someone who hates gifts will live. Rather, the Marsha explains that certainly one should not get pleasure from others. Rather, this Gemara is specifically referring to a traveler getting pleasure as a guest. Everyone's considered poor when they travel because they don't have much. That's what the Gemara specifically says. Beds, table, chair, candelabra, that's what a traveler needs. The Gemara means that someone who wants to get pleasure like Elisha, aka when he traveled, may do so. But he certainly get pleasure from others. Otherwise, aka when he wasn't traveling. That's a very important point of the Marsha. But anyways, that's a whole discussion. The Rambam in Hilchos Deos, in Perek Beis Halacha Zayin, says that one should minimize the amount of time he works. And the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah in Perek Gimel, Halacha Yud and Yud Aleph, says that anyone who decides to learn Torah and not work, this is the Rambam that we recorded above, anyone who decides to learn Torah and not work and get supported from charity, guess what? Chilul Hashem, according to the Rambam, you're desecrating Hashem's name. You're disgracing the Torah, you're causing bad for yourself, and you're taking your life from this world because it's prohibited to benefit from Torah in this world. But guess what? Rabbi Cairo, who we already quoted numerous times in the Kesef Mishnah over there, argues on this. He says that someone who doesn't have a way to make money could take money from others in order to learn Torah. And many Talmidei Chachamim, many scholars have done so. They took money in order that they could dedicate themselves to learning Torah. It could be possible that this happened, and this is the most famous part of what we're discussing, perhaps is this specific point. Because the pasuk that says "Eis la'asos la'Hashem efeiru sorsecha," that there's a time to do for Hashem, and sometimes you have to go against what it says in the Torah. You have to nullify your Torah. If people wouldn't have money, they wouldn't be able to learn properly, and the Torah would be forgotten. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. This is we also discuss this. The Rabbi Cairo, he also writes about this in Your Day. We discuss Silchos Talmud Torah and Reish Mem Vav Chaf and Chaf Aleph over there that we quoted above as well. It has to be pointed out that Rambam himself says at the end of Hilchos Shmit and Yovel, which we already saw quoted by the Ber Halacha, that anyone who wants to separate himself and stand in front of Hashem and toss off from his neck the yoke of calculation is considered to sanctify Hashem's name. AK, if you don't want to work and learn Torah all the time, that's great, Kiddush Hashem. Hashem will be in his portion inheritance forever. He's going to merit in this world like the Kohanim and Levim. Oh, Shevet Levi Bilvad, it wasn't just the tribe of Levi. So you have two different Rambams. Could be, depends on the type of person, as we discussed above. Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, in his Shilos and Chuvas, Igrois Moshe in Yordei Chilik Beis Siman Kuf Tazayin was asked regarding if you have a Talmud Chacham, a scholar. He wants to learn Torah at a high qualitative and quantitative level and get supported for others. For example, Kollel, Rav, Rosh Hashiva, take money from others. Is that permissible? Is it better to just work? They should take money, says Rav Moshe Feinstein. This is the ruling of the Shach in your there, which we saw above in Reish Mem Vav Os Chavav. That's what the Shach says. Os Chav, excuse me, and also the Ramah says this as well in your day over there in Reish Mem Vav and Os Chav Vav. The halacha, which is obvious. This is a halacha which is obvious, says Rav Moshe, and it was practiced for many generations. Those who try to go like the Rambam and Hilchos Talmud Torah, AK, and work are being advised by their evil inclination, he says. Their evil inclination is trying to cause them to stop learning. They will forget what they have already learned, and that is not good. A few miscellaneous points to end this section with. The mission of Avos relates. Paragimel, towards the end. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Imein derech eretz ein Torah. Imein Torah ein derech eretz. First it says, and then it says Imein derech eretz ein Torah. If there's no derech eretz, there's no Torah. Some say work, some say midos, good characteristics. Then the Mishnah says Imein kemach ein Torah, Imein Torah ein kemach. If there's no flour, then there's no Torah, and vice versa, like we said above. The Gemara in Baba Metzia, Alam Beis quotes Rav, who says that anyone who anticipates the table of others, there's going to be darkness. It's not good. Rav Chizit says it's not considered a life. It's referring to doesn't have money. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, again, this is a miscellaneous, it's a random section. Gemara in Rosh Hashanah and Lamed Alpha Mid Beis, different sources throughout Kollel Tarakul about working on learning. The Gemara over there says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai lived for 120 years. He did business for 40 years, learned Torah for 40 years, and taught Torah for 40 years. The Gemara in Tainus on Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, long story over there about Rabbi Yochanan and Ilfun. It's clear that optimally one should learn Torah full time if possible. The Gemara Megillah on Vav relates that being financially successful requires Siyata Dishmaya, divine assistance. Rashi explains that some people try very, very hard to make a lot of money and they toil to work a lot, but guess what? They don't find success. They don't make a lot of money. The mission of Avos is another mission that says, beginning of the fourth parak, says that don't use the Torah as a crown to glorify yourself with. Don't use it as a spade to dig with. This is what Hillel would say, someone who exploits the crown will fade away if using the Torah for your benefit. It's not good. Who gets pleasure from Torah is taking his life in this world. Avos Rabbi Nassan in Perek Kafches Osyud quotes Rabbi Yehuda ben Eli, who says that anyone who makes his Torah learning the main priority and his work secondary will be made primary in this world, and vice versa. It's analogous to a path. One side of the path has fire, and the other side has snow. What could he do? He doesn't want to get burnt, but he doesn't want to be too cold. Walk in the middle. You won't get burnt, you won't get too cold. The same applies with working and learning. Do both. We're not going to discuss now because it's already too long, and people probably won't want it too long. But the next time, why is it so difficult to make money? That's a whole discussion in and of itself. Really, that could be a separate one, just in and of itself. What job should we choose? Type of job, which is also very important. And then lastly, what does it mean to hate positions of authority? I mean that we could put in right now because it has to do with the Mishnah. What does it mean when the Mishnah says to hate positions of authority? Rashi explains that the positions of authority they bury its owners. And the Gemara asks why Yosef died before his brothers, and the Gemara says because he was active with an authoritative position. That's the Gemara in Brachos on Nun Hey. The Art Scroll explains on page 35 that a position as a rabbi is one of the most difficult jobs. He has to he's responsible for all the spirituality of everyone who is in his congregation. He has to rebuke them, Muslim. That's very difficult sometimes. And if he doesn't, then it's considered as if he did the sin. So you have to be very careful. And if you rebuke them too much, then they're going to run away. So you have to be very delicate. There was once a Jew who was convicted of tax evasion, and he was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor in Siberia, in tundra. And he told his Rav that it was his fault because the rabbi knew what he was doing and didn't say what he was going against civil law, which is forbidden by the Torah. Avos Chaim explains that this man knew the severity of all of his sins and crimes, the harshness that the government might treat him, but he was still sure that his Rav was responsible for his fate. Why? Because his rabbi didn't rebuke him. This certainly applies when a Rav's congregants will be judged in the world to come. They're going to be sentenced to fates that are much worse than 15 years in Siberia. They're going to point to the Rav and say it's the Rav's fault. The Rav was supposed to guide me on the right path. Avos Chaim once advised one of his students to assume a position as a Rav. And the student said he's worried about the responsibility of making halachic rulings and decisions. Avos Chaim says, should someone who isn't afraid about that, should he get the position? Someone who despises holding positions of power is by definition the most fit to such positions because he will do his job with the utmost care and caution. The Mishnah therefore teaches us to despise positions of power, but occupy them for the sake of heaven. That's the idea. Explanation 3, according to the Rashi, this refers to regular positions of authority. One should certainly strive to be a Rav, however. So this is basically a deep dive over here on the thing of the working versus learning business. And look, at the end of the day, it all boils down to depends on the person. The person's got to know. He has to know, is he in this world primarily to make a lot of money and give a lot of tzedakah to support Torah or to learn Torah? Person has to know, what is he capable of? If a person knows himself, he can't focus all day. It's very, very difficult to focus all day. Person has to be honest with himself. But clearly we see that both are legitimate practices and people have to be honest with themselves that they're supposed to be learning full-time or that they're supposed to be working full-time.
But before I ask the questions, I do want to give a message to the island that if someone thinks that this year is saying that like we should work and work and work and not learn, that's not true. And then the people who work and they say I want to make more money and more money, so I don't have time to learn. So first of all, parnassus from the Eibishter. However much money you make is written on Rosh Hashanah. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Oh, we tend to have to do shtalos. Just do a normal work job. Like what's a normal? Like 15 hours a day? No, do a regular 9 to 5 job.
I said that, yeah.
But doesn't the pasuk says Hine Yomim Boyim Nichma Hashem Lo Yira'av V'Lechem V'Lo Yitzam Alamayim?
Therefore,
Saying that if you don't have bread on the table, so this is stira.
what do you mean?
You're saying that if you don't work, you won't have bread on the table.
Okay.
So, but it says Hine Yomim Boyim Hashem Lo Yira'av V'Lechem. They won't be hungry for bread. V'Lo Yitzam Alamayim.
Okay. So how do you answer that?
I'm asking the question.
Oh, you're asking a question. Okay, so what's the question?
You say that if somebody doesn't work,
Yeah.
that and you said you want to have bread to put on the table, but
You won't have it.
what about the Yom Baim Num Hashem Leilokim Doila of Lechem Beloid Saman
Yeah,
Lamai?
that could be talking about a particular time. Nowadays, there's also so many programs to take care of people who are poor, but you don't want to come onto that. That's the idea.
But instead of learning Torah in order to teach,
Yes.
Saying like the Gemara of me Oyev Bahama and Loy Tvua.
Yeah.
And when you said right at the beginning of the shir that a person should hold the Gavra Rabbah, So I want
You
to
shouldn't say he's a Gavra.
shouldn't say Zigar
Right.
Rav. I just reminded myself the Gemara Kollel of Elazar's the era.
Okay. What happened there?
Oh, he said he was in very dark places.
Yeah.
There were dark that the people in Babel used like should grant the police that's harming such dark places because I'm being upset at the Harbin. So he says, yeah, arrest him. Then he said, Gavarabo, no, Gavarabo.
Yeah, there's a whole discussion about that. Yeah, I remember learning that within the. Yeah. Okay.
He's like, oh, just fucked it up, went out and I just want friend this good. But what if a person is a gvir?
What if he is?
Should he stop?
Oh, that's what I was saying. He has to know. A lot of people who have a lot of money, they're just not capable of focusing on learning all day. So he has to know if he's able to learn all day or not. Number one. Number two is that if he has a lot of money, a lot of times the people with a lot of money, they have a lot of money and they understand money and they have it for a reason. And they have a certain business or talent, and therefore they're able to make a lot more money than the average person, and he's able to therefore support a lot more Torah than the average person. So he has to know that, because if he himself isn't going to learn, and now he could end up making more money and support hundreds of thousands of people learning, so then who says that his one learning is more important than a lot? However, if he is able to really focus and he realizes the sweetness of Torah and the importance of it, and he has, so then he should learn. So he has to know. It could depend on the exact person.
By the way, what you just said now is like when Magid Shiravelli was once interviewed when he picked himself up to went there to stroll. So someone asked him, "You were lucky. You had money. You were able to do it. I struggle with Barnos every day." Sarah says, "But by the way, there are people even wealthier than me. We don't know any."
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Please say subscribe and watch every single video and stay tuned for the next part of this year. Coming soon.
Ciao.